I bought this off of Amazon for $24, and in it is an 18th century genealogy that traces my direct ancestors back at least 8 generations. But is it worth the paper it's written on? And how do I take the information provided in this book and turn it into evidence? We'll answer those questions next on Evidentia Answers. Hello everyone, my name is Ed Thompson, the designer of Evidentia software, and today we're going to take a look at published genealogies. Now, this is an example of one that I got off of Amazon, and most of these 18th and 19th century books you can get off of Google Books for free, and I do have a PDF copy around here somewhere, so you don't have to pay for them. But are they really worth anything, first of all? And the answer to that question is it depends. What you'll find is very detailed layouts of genealogy tracing back multiple generations, and it's obvious that the author used real evidence documents to research these, but there are 0 citations. So there's no way of knowing whether reliable records were used, and the level of proof required has grown exponentially as we've moved forward into the 21st century. Yeah, 21st century. So what do we do with it? Well, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how I enter it into Evidentia and how I evaluate these kinds of works, and give you an example not only of that, but we'll touch on a couple of other things along the way. So let's get started. Here I have my copy of Evidentia up, and before we get started entering the data, I want to show you make sure I'm on the right screen here. I want to show you something I set up to make it a little bit easier for me to follow up on my own research. Off of the list manager screen, I'm going to go to direct line tracker, and I have a direct line that I entered in yesterday. Daniel Hart Thompson to William Richardson, and Daniel is my third great grandfather. So I didn't take it all the way back to me because it would have made the tree a little bit too long. But one of the things I'd like to do is prove his relationship back several generations back to William Richardson. So I'm going to select that, and what you see here is data that I entered in, starting with Daniel Hart Thompson here at the bottom. His mother, I believe, is Susanna B. Richardson, who is the daughter of Jesse Richardson. And the green check mark means that I have actually generated a proof that proves the relationship between Susanna Richardson and Jesse Richardson. Now, ideally, what I'd like to see is a tree of green check marks going all the way to the top. But to do that, I need evidence. And one of the pieces of evidence that I used was a published genealogy by, I believe it was John Adams Vinton, and we'll take a look at that document now. But again, there were no citations, and this particular man was a prolific writer of genealogies, and I know that there are scams out there, false genealogies that have been written, so you do have to be careful. But it's still possible that this can be used as valuable evidence. So let's see how we would approach it within Evidentia. Now, I've actually already used this document in the proof that you saw before. So I'm just going to search for the source. And you'll see here I've got it entered as a book, the Vinton Memorial. And you see down in the citation section, I've got 2 citations. I have a citation for Susanna Richardson, and it was on page 234, and we'll look at that very briefly. And then I have another citation for her father, Jesse Richardson. And what I want to do today is enter a 3rd citation for going up the next level. Now, to do that, I've attached the PDF of the Vinton Memorial to my record. And It's on the wrong screen. Hold on. I did lower the resolution of my screen so that you could see more of it. I see the print a little bit larger than I have in the past, because I know these can be very, very hard to read, even at excellent resolutions. So this particular book, it is a, I don't know how much Google is still photocopying books, but they've taken books that are in the public domain, and there's a whole selection. Check out books.google.com and type in the name of one of your ancestors. They may be in there somewhere. And I'm going to go to the title page here real quick. Okay. There's John Vinton, the author of this particular published work. And you see that he is tracing the lineage, the descendants of John Vinton of Lynn. Oh, I guess that's not the author. That is the person he's tracing the lineage, the descendants of. Okay. Keep up. I'm having a little bit of trouble with my scrolling here. There we go. This book was printed in 1858 in a publishing house out of Boston. So let me find the first one. Let me start at page 234. It takes me to page 21. There we go. We're getting closer. Oh, 234, right? I didn't think my numbers were this high. This was unfortunately one of those things that I couldn't really do ahead of time, although I guess I could have taken screenshots. But I wanted to show you the actual document that I'm using. And I'm not going down fast enough. All right. 243 was it? No, 234. Oh, I thought it was 233, 234. Okay, I'm going to go up to Jesse, who I know as person 471. All right, and here in the middle of the page, I have the entry for Jesse Richardson, the son of Lieutenant Stephen and Martha Richardson. And this is the person that I already have an entry for. So let's see what I've done here. And you see here that I've referenced the source as an authored work. I've given it a name and documented the pages for quick reference. And I have a proper source citation. And if I go to the details screen, you can see even more. And I'm going to work off that today. So I've got source and citation listed. If I go to the catalog information screen, you can see that I've entered in a lot of claims from that already, and in some cases tagged it with the persons of interest. So standard use of Evidentia. When we talk about a source, we're usually actually not talking about a book, but it's so easy to use the book paradigm that this was kind of handy. So what I'm going to do, I've already have a source. I don't need to re-enter all that data. And a lot of the citation information is going to be identical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the citation. And this says a copy of the citation. What I want to enter in, well, let's find the information from the book first. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to find out where Jesse, ancestor number 471, is referenced higher up, because that'll tell me information about his parents. So I'm going to continue to search up, and right there we see the entry for Jesse. Now I've already got Jesse entered into the system from that entry down below, but here's another place where he's going to be referenced. And who I have here is a Lieutenant Stephen Richardson, only son of Stephen and Mary Richardson of Woburn. And I want to close that. I want to start entering in data about him. Now let me actually increase the print here. I can do that. That's good. And I'm going to go back to Evidentia. So what I want to do, the book remains the same. I'm going to give the citation title a little bit different. So it's Lieutenant Stephen Richardson. And I actually find tips a little intrusive. So let me turn them off while we're doing this. Okay, so I have Lieutenant Stephen Richardson. I don't care that this is a copy. And he is being referenced on page 75 and 76. So this is personal preference. This is how I like to do my citation titles. Where I give I tie it back to the source, what is it, and then the person of interest, and that doesn't mean that's the only person I'm going to be referencing off of this. And then I'm going to use the same citation title for reports. So that's there. So the only thing in the citation listing, let me increase this. So the only thing in the citation listing really that's going to change for, in this particular instance, is the page numbers, which is exactly why I allow you to clone or copy citations, because a lot of times that's what we're doing. We're referencing different parts of the same source. So I'm going to leave that, and that should create my entry down here. Now, why do I have Jesse. I have Jesse copy. Okay, I copied twice. Let me delete that one. And then we'll go back to Lieutenant Stephen. So I have identified my source just by changing a name in a citation title and adjusting the pages. So now's the time we want to actually begin to catalog the information. And for that, I'm going to use the mini editor and then pull back up the document. The mouse on the right screen. And what I want to do here is I want to complete the sentence. Let me go back here. This record claims that, and that's the sentence that I want to complete. So, oops, collapsed my source. This record claims that Lieutenant Stephen Richardson, oops, why is it not typing? Because I am still on the wrong screen. Lieutenant Stephen Richardson was the son of Stephen and Mary Richardson of Woburn. Now, I quoted it directly from the document. This kind of document has very concise snippets of information in it, and a lot of this I'm going to copy almost verbatim. The one thing I am going to do to make it a little bit easier for myself, and I don't know why I hit that button a little too soon, is oh, I see. I want to copy. Let's see. Can we Oops, wrong window. I want to copy this part. This record claims that Lieutenant Stephen Richardson, because I'm going to use that over and over again. It claims it was born September 4th, 1744. It claims that he was married to Martha Wyman on July 9th, 1770. Now I can also hit Control Enter, and that way I'm staying on the keyboard. I don't have to keep switching to the month. This document claims that Martha Wyman was born February 25th, 1748. Now, if I wasn't using the mini editor here and had to bounce back and forth, I would definitely, it would, God, it would kill me, because I'm definitely, my memory between the time I switch screens, I'm going to transcribe information incorrectly. And that's why the mini editor is so valuable. I can also stretch it out to and I'm going to say to Captain Benjamin Wyman and Esther Richardson Wyman. So these Richardsons very closely related. Oops, I don't need to do that. Now, one of the things I did this time that's kind of interesting, and I didn't even do it on purpose. Let's go back to Evidentia. In the first entry here at the bottom, I said that he was the son of Stephen and Mary Richardson, and that he was born on September 4th, 1744. I did that as two separate claims, and I kind of went with it because that was how the data was kind of laid out. Now, when I go to tag these particular claims, and I'm not going to tag all of them, but let me go ahead and do that. So I would tag the birth of, let me go Stephen here, and here's Stephen Richardson. The claim that Lieutenant Stephen Richardson was born September 4th, 1744 provides evidence for the birth of Stephen Richardson. And I'm done. And then I would go down here and say child, and I'd select one parent, and it was also Stephen. 1714 Stephen and Stephen Richardson, and I would add that. So I would have one tag for each claim. Well, no, actually I'd have two for this one, because I'd want to go in and add that he was also a child of Martha Wyman. Is that the right time period? No, that's not the right time period. I might not. Was it Esther? I'm gonna have to go back and check on that. So I'm just gonna leave that. I owe that one a tag. Oh, Mary. It was Mary. Duh. See, I switched screens and it's gone. So he was the child of Wyman Mary. And I don't have a Mary Wyman in there yet. So I'm hitting enter. Well, actually, let me fix the case in this. So by hitting enter instead of tabbing out or using the mouse to get out, it actually created a new person for me. And I can actually, can I? No, not here. And then I'm going to add that tag. So here I split out the birth date and the parents. And that makes sense because I'm going to use this to prove the parentage and this to prove the birth date. And I may actually add an entry about residence that, at the time of his birth he was living in Woburn, because that's implied by the information. Now in this case, doing it here, and talk about, let's see. Lieutenant Stephen Richardson married Martha Wyman on July 9th, 1770. And so here's the one that I combined. Martha Wyman was born 25th, 1748, to Captain Benjamin Wyman and Esther Richardson Wyman. So in this case, I would end up with 3 tags over here. I would end up with one tag for her birth, another tag for her being a child of Benjamin, and then a third tag for her being a child of Esther. And I really didn't need to do it that way. I don't need that cross information. I don't need to know who the parents were to prove the birth date. I don't need the birth date to prove who the parents were, although they kind of do logically go together. My point is this: both ways are right. There's not a wrong way to do it. I just glanced over as the chat. Dr. Strange, are you a certified genealogist? I am not. I am a certified lunatic. But I've been working in genealogy since '95, and I've been working in genealogy software since 2010. So I'm not claiming any great expertise, which is why what I'm really focused on here is how to use the program. And that's the point here. So let's talk about this. How, as I'm entering in this data, and let's talk about the other data that I would enter in, because I don't want to go too long here. So the other data that I would grab here, I would probably use this sentence or some of the data in this sentence to imply birthplace, although that's more implicitly being stated than explicitly, so it'd probably be more indirect evidence of where he was born, just because of the way the sentence was written. It would be clear if it said Stephen Richardson was born in Woburn on September 4th, 1744, to Stephen and Mary, but the way it's actually written, it's telling you that Stephen and Mary of Woburn were the parents of Stephen Richardson, but that doesn't mean they were living in Woburn at the time of his actual birth, so it's indirect evidence. Going back, it tells us that Lieutenant Stephen lived at Button End in Woburn. That might be an interesting thing for research, but that tells me something about his residence. On the confines of Stoneham. Confines, I thought, was an interesting word. So probably I would take this, or at least all the information here, and enter it in as a single claim. I'm not going to do that. I typed too slow. But this was also interesting. He died June 18th, 1783 at age 39. He died of a fever occasioned by drinking cold water on a hot day. I thought that was hilarious. Martha, his widow, died September 25th, 1793. She was 45 and 7 months years old. So here, what have I got here? I have information about when Stephen was born, implications about where, data about his parents, data about his marriage, information about when his wife was born, who his wife's parents were, the residence, cause of death, date and place of death. Is that right? Well, place is a little vague. And the date of his wife's death. That's a lot of information. And then I would go down and I would start mapping out the claims about the children and who the children married. So this would be, let's go back to Evidentia to one I already did, Susanna. You see here, I have a lot of claims here from a snippet that was really no bigger than what I've just showed you working on. So let's talk about how solid is that information. Because again, we have no source citations. So if I look here, Susanna Richardson married Daniel Page Thompson of Guilford, New Hampshire, 17th, 26th, 1824. This is a clue. It is not absolute evidence in and of itself because of the lack of citations. It is evidence. It's not a solid piece of evidence because this is coming from an authored work who did not cite his sources. But it is definitely evidence. And it's evidence that provided me a clue to begin looking for Daniel, who I had already proved a relationship with, who lived in Guilford, New Hampshire. And from that, I was able to identify his father, David, and his mother, Rachel. And this corresponds to data from Daniel Page Thompson's death certificate that gave me information about his birth, also from Guilford, New Hampshire. And that's how I was able to take a solid piece of evidence and this less than solid piece of evidence and kind of join them together in my analysis to feel a lot better about my conclusions. Now, it is possible that the author got his information from the same death certificate. I don't think that's the case in this case, but in another video, I show how it kind of provides where there's actually a conflict of evidence where this particular book says one date. Matter of fact, where did it say here? Okay, yes. This book said that Daniel Page Thompson died October 17th, 1852, and another source said he died, I think, the 17th of October, 1852. And that's conflicting evidence, although the dates are very close together, and I had to account for that conflicting evidence in my conclusion and justify which argument I felt was stronger. But at least I didn't throw it away. So you can see how you can get a lot of information here, and there's just a ton of information. And as I prove more and more of it by cross-referencing other sources, it gives me more and more confidence in the information in some of these other claims. But again, the information is obviously secondary information. He's not getting the information directly from the source, although there was one person, there were some people that he referenced that were still alive in this book at the time the book was published, and he may have had firsthand knowledge of these people and that they were together as a couple. So that evidence would be a little bit stronger. So that is, well, really, that's it. That is how my approach to taking information from printed, published genealogies without good sources, and how I enter the data in to Evidentia to be used as clues or evidence to continue my research. And I would continue along that same realm. Here I would go back to, still the wrong page. I would go back to, now I've gone too far. Well, I know that his father was referenced as number 127. So let me find reference to 127. And let me scroll up a little faster. Okay, the scroll got away from here. And you see here, as you go further and further back, actually the author provides more and more information. Yeah, there I'm at 21 now. Let me scroll down to there we go. Oops. There is a little bit of hunt and peck, which is so that lends itself. I thought it was number 127, 129. Okay. And here I am. Oh no, that's where I'm working on right now. So his father was Stephen and Mary Richardson of Woburn, 1744. So I'm going to search for 1744, and I'm going to search up because there's not that many entries. Yeah, here we go. Number 43 is his father, Stephen Richardson, who was the son of William, who's one of the top level people in this book, and Rebecca Richardson, Rebecca Vinton. And again, a lot of solid information. So here, I would just keep going back to each of these numbered sections, glean all the claims out of each section that I possibly could. Then I'm not so much worried about some of the distracting side information. Although if I was to go one level further to William and Rebecca, then the author goes into a lot of interesting narrative detail that I wouldn't necessarily pull out as claims, more likely just to note that information for when I want to go back and kind of write out my own narrative. Lewis asks, if one of those items, a birth date, had a footnote, which was a reference to another document, how would you include that in Evidentia? I would include the footnote as a claim. And I would try and as quickly as possible to get access to that source itself. So I would say something like, well, I would say that, well, I would probably write the claim the same way. I would say that this section of the book claims that Stephen Richardson was born on the birth date, and that the author got that information from another document, and I put that document in the notes. I would also, in that case, go back to the citation that I had created previously, and I would create a sub-citation that referenced that this particular part of the book got its information from another source. And then I would try to get my hands on that source itself to cut out the middleman. Because again, we don't know if a date was transcribed, if John Adams Vinton was dyslexic, hopefully not. But that's how I would handle it, Lewis, is I would go back to the citation and create a secondary source, or actually this is a secondary source. I would create a citation for the primary source, but then I would want to go back to that primary source directly, either on microfiche or microfilm, or if we could find that in government records, that would be wonderful. But that's how I would handle that in this document. Hello to Thomas Phillips from Kansas. Is it getting cold there yet, Thomas? Angie Wilderman, thanks for joining us. Does anyone have any other questions? So hopefully that will give you a taste of how I would approach entering a published genealogy in Evidentia, and then how I would use that in analysis later. Hopefully it also presents the cautions when including information from these kinds of books, especially if that information is not cited, which they usually are. A couple of things I want to point out. Leslie, I do see your question. I'll come back to it in just a moment. Go ahead and post your question. while I kind of give my sales pitch here. If you like this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit like and hit that little bell. That little bell means you want to be notified when new live streams come out in this series. Next week's live stream is going to be, what did I say it was going to be? Hold on one second and I will tell you. I have started planning ahead for some of these live streams. And I don't remember what I had on the docket for this one, for next week. I know what it was. Next week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a probate record that was found on a database website and show you how I would approach entering data from a probate record. Now, with Evidentia Answers, there might be questions in the Facebook group that merit a little bit of treatment, a little bit of live treatment. And if you have questions that you'd like to see a focus on in Evidentia Answers, definitely post about it in the Facebook group or contact me directly. So with Evidentia Answers, I will have something planned for the next week, but I won't necessarily commit to that solidly in case somebody asks a more pressing question online. The other thing I want to point out, some of you already know, on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, I host a live stream show, the Genealogy Software Showcase. And next week we'll be this week we'll be showcasing genealogy software that runs on the iPad. A lot of you have asked about what you can do with an iPad as far as genealogy research is concerned. So our focus on this week in Genealogy Software Showcase will be on tools for the mobile genealogists. So that's that. Leslie, you have a question about your account. That might be best handled offline. If you can email me at ed@evidentiasoftware.com, I'll get right back to you on that. We'll get whatever your issue is with your account straightened out. So if that's all for today, I want to thank you for joining us on Evidentia Answers. And until next week, that's goodbye.